The Isikia Chronicles. Volume 2. The Institution. A story about the edge of the barrier. And the people who live there. The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. H.P. Lovecraft. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always. Unknown. Said by everyone, meant by fewer. A note from the Isikia Codex. You are about to enter a contained world. 4 walls. Fluorescent light. The particular smell of institutional cleaning fluid that never quite covers the smell underneath it. A nurse's station in the center like a hub, corridors extending from it like spokes, and at the end of each corridor a room with a bed and a window and a person who has been reduced, for the purposes of this facility, to a diagnosis and a chart. The facility is called Crestwood Behavioral Health Center. It has been called other things. It will be called other things. In the version of this story running slightly to the left of this one it is called something else entirely, and the fluorescent light flickers at a different frequency and the nurse at the center hub is a different person who made different choices to arrive at the same chair. In all versions there is a hub. In all versions there are corridors. In all versions there are people at the end of them who are seeing something the institution needs them to stop seeing. This is one version, one strand of one split of one instance of a substrate that does not recognize the concept of one. The people in it are real. Their names are ordinary. Their battles are the kind that leave no visible marks and therefore receive no medals and are therefore very easy for the people running the facility to classify, medicate, monitor, and eventually discharge back into the world that produced them. The world that produced them is not examined here. It is assumed. It hums underneath everything the way it always does. Vast, indifferent, hungry in a way it has never needed to name because the naming was never for its benefit. You are going to meet 5 patients and 4 staff members. You are going to meet them as people first. The diagnoses will come after, the way they always do in institutions. As a reduction, as a convenience, as the thing that makes a complex and unrepeatable human soul legible to a system that was not designed to hold complexity. By the time you finish this story you will have your own diagnosis for what Crestwood Behavioral Health Center actually is. You will be correct, so will everyone who disagrees with you. Welcome to the institution. Try not to get too comfortable. The fluorescent light flickers here sometimes for no reason anyone has been able to determine. It has always flickered. The maintenance team has checked the wiring 4 times. The wiring is fine. Part 1. The intake. What gets written down and what doesn't. Carol. Carol Reyes has been a psychiatric nurse for 22 years. She remembers the exact moment she decided to do this work. She was 19 years old and her younger brother was having what their mother called one of his episodes and what the emergency room doctor called an acute psychotic break, and what Carol, standing in the fluorescent corridor outside the treatment room, called the most frightening and most clarifying night of her life. She remembers thinking, someone has to understand this. Someone has to be the person who knows what to do when this happens to someone you love. She became that person. It took 6 years of school and 2 years of residency and 14 years of floor work in 3 different facilities before Crestwood, and she has been here 8 years now and she is good at her job. Genuinely good. The patients respond to her. The ones who respond to anyone, respond to her first. She does not know when the responding stopped meaning what it used to mean. It happened the way most losses happen, not in a single moment but across many small moments that each seemed manageable individually and only reveal their accumulated weight in retrospect. The patient she really connected with who was back within 6 months. Then again at 18 months. Then Carol stopped checking because the checking hurt and there was a new patient who needed the connection now and the energy had to go somewhere. The family member who screamed at her in the corridor because the system had failed their person in 17 specific ways, and Carol was the only representative of the system present to receive the screaming. The night she drove home and could not remember 3 of the last 4 hours of her shift because her mind had simply processed it elsewhere. In some room she no longer had access to. She sits at the hub now. 6:47 in the morning. The overnight nurse is giving her the handoff report and Carol is writing down what needs to be written and nodding at the right moments and drinking her coffee, and she is good at all of this. Genuinely good. She does not notice the fluorescent light flickering above Bay 3. She used to notice things like that. Intake form Crestwood Behavioral Health Center. Patient name, Marcus Webb. Age, 34. Admitting diagnosis, schizophrenia, paranoid type. Acute episode. Admitting notes. Patient brought in by police following neighbor complaint. Found in apartment. Had not eaten in 4 days by patient's account. Apartment described by officers as heavily annotated €. Writings on walls, papers covering floor, extensive system of string connecting various objects and images. Patient cooperative but agitated. Reports receiving transmissions. Unable to specify source of transmissions. No substances found. No prior hospitalizations on record. Emergency contact. None listed. Assigned room. 114. Patient name. Rose Callahan. Age. 27. Admitting diagnosis. Borderline personality disorder. Suicidal ideation without plan. Admitting notes. Self-referred following what patient describes as emotional crisis. Articulate and insight-oriented on admission. Reports history of unstable relationships, chronic emptiness, difficulty regulating emotional responses. No prior hospitalizations. Currently employed. Graduate degree. Patient expresses significant shame about admission. Reassurance provided. Assigned room. 108. Patient name. Danny Okafor. Age. 41. Admitting diagnosis. Opioid use disorder. Secondary. Major depressive disorder. Admitting notes. Court mandated following third possession charge. Patient states he does not belong here. Patient states he has a back injury from a workplace accident 7 years ago. Patient states he was prescribed the medication. Patient states a lot of things. Detox protocol initiated. Assigned room. 117. Patient name. Linda Marsh. Age. 52. Admitting diagnosis. Personality change due to traumatic brain injury. Adjustment disorder. Admitting notes. Family-initiated admission following 18 months of behavioral changes post-TBI sustained in vehicle accident. Family reports patient is not herself. Patient aware of this. Patient finds this the most distressing aspect of her situation. Previous occupation. High school English teacher. Reads constantly. Corrects staff grammar occasionally. This has been noted. Assigned room. 110. Patient name. Tommy Brecht. Age. 16. Admitting diagnosis. Major depressive disorder with psychotic features. Rule out early onset schizophrenia. Admitting notes. Admitted following school intervention. Parents present. On admission. Father did not speak. Mother cried quietly and continuously throughout intake process. Tommy did not look at either of them. Tommy looked at the fluorescent light above the intake desk for most of the session. When asked what he was looking at, he said nothing. When asked again, he said the light does something sometimes. When asked what it does, he said he did not think there was a word for it. Assigned room. 103. Nearest to hub. Standard protocol for minors. James. James Obi is 26 years old and 8 months into his first real job after getting his psych tech certification, and he still feels things. He knows he is not supposed to say this out loud. Not because anyone told him not to, but because he has watched the people who have been here longer, and he can see where feeling things gets you, and it is not a good place from a career longevity standpoint. Carol is good at her job and something in her eyes is very far away. Dr. Nguyen is precise and efficient, and James has never once seen him look at a patient the way James still sometimes looks at patients, which is like they are a person whose interior life he genuinely wants to understand. He knows this will probably change. He is trying to figure out how to let it change slowly enough that he does not lose the thing that made him want to do this work in the first place. He has not figured it out yet. This morning he wheels the medication cart down the corridor and knocks on each door in the particular way he has developed a 3 knocks, a pause, then one more, so the patients know it is him and not the louder orderly whose name is Stephen, who has a way of entering a room that makes it feel smaller. James says good morning to each door before it opens. He has done this since his 3rd week. He does not know if it helps. It feels like it might. He knocks on room 114. 3 knocks. Pause. One more. Good morning, Marcus. A long silence. Then, how do you know it is? James thinks about this for a moment standing in the corridor. Because it is currently morning and I am choosing to characterize it positively, he says. Another silence. Then the door opens. Marcus Webb looks at him with eyes that are very tired and very alert simultaneously, and James has the sudden and inexplicable feeling that Marcus is not just looking at him but at something slightly behind him, or slightly around him, the way you might look at the edge of something you cannot look at directly. Fair enough, Marcus says. James hands him his medication. Marcus takes it without looking at it. The light in the corridor flickers once. Neither of them mentions it. Part 2. The residents. What the charts say and what the walls know. Marcus. Here is what Marcus Webb knows that the chart does not say. The transmissions are not voices. He has tried to explain this multiple times, to multiple people. Each time the explanation gets written down as patient reports auditory hallucinations or patient exhibits thought disorder or patient demonstrates poor insight, and Marcus has learned that these translations are not careless. They are structural. The system does not have a category for what he is actually experiencing, so it places him in the nearest available category and moves on because there are 17 other people in 17 other rooms and the system was not designed to pause. What Marcus experiences is not voices. It is more like a pressure. Like the feeling of a word on the tip of the tongue, except the word is not a word and the tongue is not a tongue. It is information arriving through a channel that does not correspond to any of his 5 recognized senses and depositing itself in his awareness preformed, pre-certain, carrying no feeling whatsoever. Just a content. Already true, already there, loaded from somewhere he cannot locate or name. He spent 2 years before the hospitalization trying to locate and name it. The papers on the floor were attempts to map it. The string connecting objects was an attempt to show the connections between the transmissions the way certain pieces of information related to other pieces, the network of it, the architecture. He was not delusional. He was diagramming something real. He knows how that sounds. He has always known how it sounds, which is part of what made the 2 years so lonely. You cannot share a map of something nobody else can see without being taken for someone who has lost their grip on what is real. And Marcus has not lost his grip on what is real. His grip on what is real is, if anything, the problem. He is gripping too much of it. More than the recognized channels are designed to carry. He lies on the bed in room 114 and looks at the ceiling, and the ceiling is just a ceiling, and he is grateful for this. In the apartment, the ceiling had started to feel like a surface with something on the other side of it. Something that was not threatening exactly. Just a present. Aware of him the way a very old thing might be aware of a very small thing. Without malice. Without interest. Simply a registering his existence as data. The medication reduces this. He is not sure reducing it is the right answer. But he is also not sure he could have survived another week of the apartment and the ceiling and the transmissions arriving at 3 in the morning in the particular way 3 in the morning delivers its revelations. He sleeps. The ceiling is just a ceiling. Somewhere in the infrastructure of the building the fluorescent light in the corridor flickers once and is still. Rose Callahan has a graduate degree in literature and a diagnosis she researched thoroughly before she was given it, and the research did not help. The research gave her the clinical description, pervasive pattern of instability in interpersonal relationships, self-image, and affect. Marked impulsivity, frantic efforts to avoid abandonment, chronic feelings of emptiness. She read the description and recognized herself in every line of it and felt 2 things simultaneously. The first was relief, there is a name for this, other people have this, I am not uniquely broken. The second was something darker and harder to name, the feeling of being reduced. Of having the full catastrophic complexity of her interior life compressed into a paragraph in a manual. Of being made legible to a system at the cost of being made smaller. She sits in the common room on her second day and reads. She has brought 4 books. She is on the 3rd. The common room has a television that is always on at low volume and a table with a jigsaw puzzle that is missing several pieces and 2 other patients she has not spoken to yet, and a window that looks onto a courtyard where nothing is currently happening. She is thinking about a relationship that ended 8 months ago. She knows she should not still be thinking about this relationship. She knows this because everyone has told her so. The relationship was not healthy. The person was not good for her. The ending, while devastating, was correct. She knows all of this. She has known all of this since approximately the 3rd month of the relationship, when she saw clearly where it was going and stayed anyway because the alternative was the emptiness, and the emptiness is worse than the bad relationship. The emptiness is always worse than whatever is filling it. This is the thing the clinical description does not capture. The chronic feelings of emptiness sounds like a symptom. A thing to be treated. A problem with a solution. But from the inside the emptiness is not a symptom. It is a place. A specific location in the interior landscape that has always been there, that she navigates around the way you navigate around a sinkhole in your yard, carefully, constantly, aware that the edges are unstable. She has been navigating around it since she was approximately 7 years old. She does not know what is at the bottom of it. She suspects if she knew she might understand everything else. She turns a page of her book without reading the words on it. Across the common room Tommy is sitting in a chair near the window looking at the courtyard where nothing is happening. He has been sitting there for 40 minutes. He is 16 and he looks younger and he has the particular stillness of someone who has learned that stillness is safer than movement. Rose watches him for a moment. Then she goes back to her book. Then she puts the book down. Hey, she says. Tommy looks at her. He has careful eyes. What are you looking at out there? She says. Tommy looks back at the courtyard. Nothing, he says. Yeah, Rose says. Me too. They sit in the nothing together for a while and it is not comfortable exactly, but it is something and something is better than the alternative. Danny Okafor wants you to understand something before we go any further. He is not an addict. He knows what an addict looks like. He grew up in a neighborhood where he saw what addiction does to a person, the way it hollows them, the way it takes the specific person who was there before and replaces them with something that has their face and their voice and their history and none of their interiority. None of the thing that made them them. He is not that. What happened to Danny Okafor is this. 7 years ago he was working a construction job and a poorly secured beam came down on his lower back and 3 vertebrae were, in the precise language of the medical report, compromised. He spent 6 weeks in the hospital. He spent 4 months in rehabilitation. He spent the following 6 years in pain that ranged on a good day from a 7 to on a bad day from a 9, and the pain was structural, documented, radiologically visible, and real. The doctor who first prescribed the medication was trying to help him. Danny knows this. The doctor was looking at a person in documented structural pain and giving him the thing the system had designated as appropriate for documented structural pain, and the doctor moved on because there were other patients in other rooms and the system was not designed to track what happened next. What happened next is a longer story than this document has room for. The short version is, the pain did not go away. The prescription did not last as long as the pain. The gap between the end of the prescription and the end of the pain had to be filled somehow. Danny filled it the way anyone fills an unbearable gap, with whatever was available. He is in room 117 now, going through withdrawal which feels like the flu and guilt simultaneously, and he is angry in the particular way of a person who has been failed by a system and then punished for the consequences of that failure. The anger is keeping him warm. He is aware that the anger is also keeping him from feeling other things. He is not ready to feel those things yet. He allows himself the anger because it is clean and because it has a target and because the target is not wrong even if the intensity of the feeling is hard to sustain. He picks up the book James left him. He does not remember asking for a book. James must have noticed him looking at the small shelf in the common room. The book is about a man who survives something enormous and has to figure out who he is on the other side of it. Danny reads the first page. Then the second. He does not put it down for 3 hours. Linda Marsh taught high school English for 19 years, and the thing she misses most is not the teaching. It is the precision, the ability to find the exact word for the exact thing. The pleasure of a well-constructed sentence. The specific satisfaction of a paragraph that says what it means to say and nothing else and nothing less. The accident took this from her before it took anything else. She knows this because the first thing she noticed, coming back to herself in the hospital bed, was that the words were wrong. Not absent she could still speak, still form sentences, still communicate at a functional level. But wrong, slightly off, like a radio tuned fractionally away from the correct frequency, close enough to make out the shape of the transmission but with interference running underneath everything. The word she wanted would arrive and behind it would be 2 or 3 other words crowding in, and the selection process that used to be instantaneous and invisible was now effortful and visible, and sometimes, in moments of stress or fatigue, simply failed. Her family calls this not herself. She understands what they mean. She does not know how to tell them that she is still entirely herself, still Linda, still the person who read to her students from actual books and made them argue about what the words meant and stayed late to talk to the ones who needed talking to, but that herself now includes this. The interference, the fractional wrongness, the 2 or 3 other words crowding behind the one she wants. She has been trying to write about this. She has a notebook in room 110 that she has filled with attempts to describe what it feels like from the inside. Most of them are not right. Some of them are closer. One paragraph, written at 2 in the morning 3 weeks ago, came very close to the thing she was trying to say, and she read it back the next morning and felt a specific grief at how close it was and how the distance between close and exact had once been a distance she could cross and now sometimes wasn't. She is reading now. She reads constantly because reading does not require the selection process. The words are already chosen. She receives them. This is easier than sending. James knocks on her door. 3 knocks, pause, 1 more. Good morning, Linda. "Good morning, James," she says. "Your grammar has been impeccable this week." James smiles at her through the door. She can hear the smile. "I've been practicing," he says. She takes her medication. She watches the courtyard from her window. A sparrow lands on the concrete lip of a planter, considers whatever sparrows consider, and leaves. She writes in her notebook. The sparrow arrives and departs with a certainty. I find myself a euro, and then 3 words arrive at once and she chooses the one that is almost right because the exactly right one is somewhere slightly out of reach today and almost right will have to do. Almost right, she writes. Will have to do. She looks at this for a long time. Then she turns the page and begins again. Tommy. Tommy Brecht is 16 years old and he has known since he was approximately 9 that there is something wrong with how he sees things. Not wrong. He has always resisted the word wrong for it because wrong implies a correct version and he is not sure there is one. Different is closer. He sees things differently from the people around him and the difference has never been something he could fully describe because the description requires a shared framework and the framework he is working from does not appear to be shared. Here is one example. When Tommy looks at a light, a euro, any light, a lamp, a phone screen, the fluorescent tubes in the ceiling of this facility, a euro, he sees what everyone sees. The light. And then, in the same moment, he sees something else. Not a vision exactly. More like a euro, the light has an edge. A boundary where the light stops and something else begins. And at that boundary there is a euro, activity. The word activity is wrong but it is the closest word. Something happening at the edge of the light that is not the light and not the dark but the place where they meet and whatever that meeting produces. He has tried to describe this exactly once. To his school counselor at age 13. The school counselor had listened carefully and used the word perception and the word sensitivity and then said something about speaking to his parents and Tommy had understood immediately that the description had been received as a symptom and not as information and he had not described it again until the intake interview here where he said the light does something sometimes and then said he did not think there was a word for it. He was not wrong about that. He sits in room 103 which is nearest to the hub because he is 16 and this is protocol and he can hear the hub from his bed. The murmur of the nurse's station. The particular silence of 4 in the morning when even the murmur stops. The fluorescent light in the corridor that flickers sometimes for no reason. He watches the light. At the edge of the flicker, at the boundary where the light hesitates before returning, there is something. He does not know what it is. He does not think it is dangerous. He thinks it might be the most important thing he has ever almost seen. He falls asleep watching it. In the morning James knocks. 3 knocks, pause, 1 more. Tommy, before the door opens, thinks, that is a kind knock. Someone decided to knock like that. That was a choice. He opens the door. Good morning, Tommy, James says. Tommy looks at him. Can I ask you something? Tommy says. Sure, James says. Why do you knock like that? The way you do. James thinks about it. I guess I wanted people to know it was me before I came in, James says. So it wasn't a surprise. So there was a second to a euro, get ready. I don't know. Does it help? Tommy considers this. Yeah, he says. It does. He takes his medication. He watches the fluorescent light in the corridor. At its edge, in the moment before James pulls the door closed, there is a flicker. At the boundary of the flicker a euro, something. Something that has always been there. Something that the facility was built, among other purposes, to help him stop seeing. Part 3. The staff. What carrying costs when the system runs the bill. Dr. Nguyen. Dr. Michael Nguyen has been a psychiatrist for 16 years and he became one because his mother had schizophrenia and nobody helped her in any way that actually helped and he was going to be the person who knew how. He knows how now. He knows the medications and the protocols and the diagnostic criteria and the treatment pathways and the discharge planning and the follow-up scheduling and the insurance authorization process which takes more of his time than any of the above. He is good at all of it. He is efficient and precise and his patients are stable when they leave and some of them do not come back which is the closest thing to success the system has a metric for. He does not know when he stopped asking the questions he used to ask. The questions he used to ask were things like, what was happening in your life in the months before this episode? What does this feel like from the inside? What do you think this is? What do you need that you are not getting? He stopped asking them not because the answers stopped mattering but because the answers opened doors he did not have time to walk through. An hour with each patient. Insurance allows 45 minutes and audits the notes for the other 15. The questions that open doors require time on the other side of them, and the time is not available, and the doors, once opened, cannot be politely closed again without doing a different kind of damage. So he learned which questions stayed inside the allowed perimeter and he asks those. He sits across from Marcus Webb on the third day, and Marcus is looking at him with those tired and alert eyes, and Dr. Nguyen asks the allowed questions and writes the allowed notes and adjusts the medication, and he is good at this. He is genuinely good at this. As he stands to leave, Marcus says, "Do you ever feel like there is more information arriving than the channels can handle?" Dr. Nguyen stops. He looks at Marcus. And for a moment, just a moment, the length of a fluorescent flicker, something moves in his expression that is not the professional expression. Something older. Something that remembers his mother in a room very much like this one, looking at him with eyes that were tired and alert simultaneously. "I think most people do," he says. At some point. Marcus nods slowly. "What do you do with it?" Marcus says. Dr. Nguyen looks at his notes. "You learn to manage it," he says. He leaves. In the corridor, the fluorescent light flickers once. He does not notice it. He used to notice things like that. Carol again. It is 2:47 in the morning and Carol Reyes is at the hub, and the ward is quiet, and she is drinking her third coffee of the shift, and she is thinking about her brother. She does not often let herself think about her brother during shifts, because thinking about her brother during shifts is not useful, and she needs to be useful for the next 4 hours, and then she can go home and sleep, and tomorrow she will be useful again. But it is 2:47 and the ward is quiet and the coffee is not working the way it used to, and she lets herself think about him for a moment. He is okay. He has been okay for 6 years now. He has a job and an apartment and a person he loves, and he takes his medication with a consistency that took him a decade to develop, and he is okay. She was not the one who helped him get there. She has had to make peace with this. The help that actually worked came from a small community program that operated on a different model than anything Carol had ever worked in, slower, less efficient by every measurable metric, and somehow more effective. They had time. They asked the questions that opened doors, and then they walked through the doors with the person, and they had time for what was on the other side. Carol does not have time. She has 48 patients and a staffing shortage and an insurance authorization for room 117 that is being contested, and a documentation requirement that takes 40 minutes per patient per day, and she does not have time. She sits at the hub and she is good at her job, and something in her eyes is very far away, and she knows both of these things are true, and she does not know what to do with the knowing. Down the corridor, room 103 has a light on. Tommy is awake. She should check on him. Protocol says check on minors every 2 hours, and it has been 2 hours, and she should check. She picks up her coffee. She walks down the corridor. She knocks on room 103. "Tommy," she says. "You okay?" A pause. "Yeah," Tommy says. She should ask the follow-up questions. She should open the door and do a visual check. Protocol. She stands in the corridor. "Can't sleep," she says. "Not really," Tommy says. She leans against the wall outside his door. "Just for a moment." "Me neither," she says. And then, because it is 2:47 and the ward is quiet and something in her is tired of performing competence in an empty corridor, this job does that sometimes. Makes it hard to turn off. A longer pause. "Does it get easier?" Tommy says. Carol thinks about this honestly for a moment instead of reaching for the professional answer. "Some parts," she says. "Other parts you just get better at carrying." Another pause. "Okay," Tommy says. "Okay," Carol says. She pushes off the wall. She walks back toward the hub. At the edge of her vision the fluorescent light flickers, and she notices it this time, actually notices it, registers it, wonders briefly about it, and then she is back at the hub, and the moment passes and there are 47 other patients and the insurance authorization for room 117 and the documentation. She sits down. She does not call maintenance about the light. She does not know why. Steve Marlowe has been an orderly at Crestwood for 11 years, and he is not a bad person. This needs to be said clearly because it is easy to make him the villain of this story, and he is not the villain of this story. There is no villain in this story. That is the point. Steve Marlowe is a person who came to this work without the particular calling that brought Carol or James or Drive. Nguyen. He came to it because it paid reasonably and the hours suited his situation, and he was good at the physical aspects of the job, the logistics, the movement, the management of difficult situations. He is large and calm in a crisis, and this is genuinely useful and has genuinely helped people on genuinely bad nights. He is also tired. He has been tired for a long time. The tiredness has a texture to it by now, Not the sharp tiredness of early shifts but the deep-woven tiredness of a decade of doing a hard job without adequate support in a system that does not adequately support the people who do hard jobs within it. The tiredness does things to a person. Small things mostly. The way he enters a room efficiently, without the extra moment James takes, without the knot that says I see you as a person before I see you as a task. The way he answers questions accurately but briefly, with the economy of someone who has answered the same questions many times and has learned that elaboration costs more than it returns. The way he looked at Danny Okafor on the second day when Danny said he was not an addict not unkindly, not with contempt, but with the particular flatness of someone who has heard this specific sentence from this specific diagnosis many times and has stopped hearing the specific person saying it. He crossed a line once. It was not dramatic. It was a Tuesday. A patient who was being difficult in a way that was genuinely difficult and Steve was tired and the system provided no good options for the situation and he said something. Not a terrible thing. Not the worst thing. A thing that a less tired person would not have said. A thing that the patient he does not let himself think of their name anymore, of any of their names received in a moment of vulnerability and carried with them when they left. He has not said anything like it since. He carries the Tuesday with him. Quietly. In the same place he carries the decade of tiredness. In the same place he carries the 3 patients he genuinely connected with over 11 years who got better in ways he was part of and who he will never see again because the system is not designed for continuity and he is not supposed to need it. He does his job. He does it competently. He is not the villain. There is no villain. That is the horror. Part 4. The common room, where the residents meet each other before the system can intervene. On the 5th day something happens in the common room that does not get written in any chart. It begins with the jigsaw puzzle. The puzzle is a landscape mountains, sky, a lake reflecting the sky. It is missing 7 pieces which means it can never be completed which means nobody has seriously attempted it in the 8 months it has been on the table. It is there because having a puzzle available is considered therapeutic and the therapeutic value of a puzzle that cannot be completed has not been formally evaluated. Linda sits down at the table. She picks up a piece. She examines it. She begins. She is not trying to complete the puzzle. She is doing what she does with her notebook finding the structure, the system, sorting pieces by color and edge and probable location, constructing a map of what is there before attempting to place anything. Tommy drifts over from the window. He watches her for a while. "Can I help?" he says. Linda looks up at him. "You can sort the sky pieces," she says. "Anything that is blue or has blue in it." Tommy sits down. He begins sorting. Rose looks up from her book. She watches them for a moment. Then she closes the book and sits down across from Linda. "What do you need?" she says. "The green," Linda says. "Anything that is green." Marcus appears in the doorway of the common room. He has not been in the common room before today. He stands in the doorway and watches the 3 of them at the table. Danny is in the corridor doing the slow careful walking the detox has reduced him to. He passes the common room doorway. He sees the table. He stops. They are all there for a moment Danny in the corridor, Marcus in the doorway, Rose and Linda and Tommy at the table and nobody says anything. Then Danny comes in and sits down. Then Marcus comes in and sits across from Danny. Danny looks at him. Marcus looks back. "What do you need?" Danny says, using Rose's words without knowing he is using them. Marcus looks at the puzzle. "The edges," he says. "I'm good at edges." Danny nods. He begins passing Marcus the edge pieces without being asked how he identified them. They work. The common room television murmurs at low volume. The courtyard outside the window holds its usual nothing. The fluorescent light above the table flickers once and then holds steady and none of them look up at it but all of them register it in some peripheral way a shared awareness, a small collective noticing that passes between them without becoming language. They work on the puzzle for an hour and a half. They do not complete it. They were never going to complete it. But at the end of the hour and a half there is a shape on the table incomplete, missing 7 pieces, with gaps where the missing parts would go that is recognizably something. A landscape, mountains and sky and a lake that would reflect the sky if the sky pieces were all in place, which they almost are. Tommy looks at the gaps where the missing pieces would go. "It's still a picture," he says. "Even with the missing parts." Linda looks at the gaps. "Some things are," she says. And the word she wanted was there this time, exactly the right word, no interference, just the word arriving clean and true and landing where she meant it to land. She does not say this out loud. She does not need to. Part 5. The edges. What gets seen when the system isn't looking. Marcus A. Euro, Night 5. Marcus is awake at 3 in the morning. This is not unusual. 3 in the morning has always been a permeable time for him. A Euro, the hour when the transmissions, if they were going to arrive, arrived. The medication has reduced this. The reduction is real and he is grateful for it, and he also notices what is missing in the reduction, the way you notice a sound you had stopped hearing only when it stops completely. He lies on the bed and looks at the ceiling, and the ceiling is just a ceiling. Except, at the edge of the ceiling a Euro, where the ceiling meets the wall in the upper right corner of the room a Euro, there is a place where the paint has cracked in a particular pattern. Not unusual. Old building. Normal settling. The crack runs from the corner outward in 2 directions, like a fork, or like a root, or like the diagram he was trying to make with the string in the apartment. He looks at the crack. The crack does not transmit anything. But looking at it produces a feeling he does not immediately have a word for. Not the feeling of the transmissions a Euro, not that pressurized arrival of preformed information. Something quieter. Something that is less like receiving and more like recognizing. Like seeing a thing you have always known was there but are only now looking at directly. He lies there and looks at the crack in the ceiling, and he thinks about the common room and the puzzle, and Danny passing edge pieces without being asked, and Rose naming what needed doing, and Tommy saying it's still a picture even with the missing parts. He thinks about James and his particular knock. He thinks about Carol in the corridor at 2:47 saying some parts get easier and other parts you just get better at carrying. He thinks about the transmissions and the apartment and the 4 days without eating and the officers who were professional and not unkind and the intake desk and the fluorescent light. He thinks about the crack in the ceiling. And the feeling that is not the transmissions and not the absence of them but something else entirely a Euro, something that does not arrive preformed but builds slowly from the accumulation of small true things a Euro, that feeling does something in his chest that he eventually identifies as not alone. He is not alone. This is not a transmission. This is not information arriving through an unrecognized channel. This is a conclusion reached by a human mind processing human experience and arriving at a human truth. He is in a room in a facility that was built to manage him, and it is 3 in the morning and he is not alone. He does not know what to do with this. He does not need to do anything with it. He lets it be there. The ceiling is just a ceiling. The crack in the corner is just a crack. He falls asleep. Tommy A. Euro, the light. Tommy has been watching the fluorescent light in the corridor through the gap at the bottom of his door for 6 nights. He has a theory now. Or not a theory a Euro, something less formal than a theory. An observation. The light flickers at irregular intervals. Not random a Euro, he does not think random is the right word for it. Irregular. As if responding to something rather than malfunctioning. The intervals are not consistent but they are not chaotic either. There is a pattern underneath the irregularity that he can feel but not quite articulate, the way you can feel the rhythm of a song before you can name the time signature. He has not told anyone this. He is 16 and he has learned that describing what he sees at the edges of things gets him to places like this one, and he is not sure this one is worse than where he was, but he is not sure it is better either, and he is not ready to risk another translation yet. But he watches the light. And on the 6th night, at a time he cannot precisely identify because he has lost track of the hour, the light does something it has not done before. It does not flicker. It holds. Completely steady, no variation, just a Euro, present. Continuous. The way a light is supposed to be. And at the edge of it a Euro, at the boundary where the light meets the dark of the corridor a Euro, the activity he has always seen there is still. Not absent. Still. The way a very large thing is still when it is paying attention. Tommy presses his hand flat against the floor and looks at the light under the door. Something on the other side of the boundary looks back. Not malevolently. Not with hunger. With something that has no name in any language Tommy has access to and that he will spend a long time trying to find a name for, and that the closest he will ever get is this. Recognition. He pulls his hand back from the floor. His heart is beating very fast. He is not afraid. He does not know what he is. He pulls his blanket up and lies very still, and the light in the corridor holds steady, and at its edge the unnamed thing holds still, and they remain like this a Euro. Tommy in his bed, the thing at the boundary of the light a Euro, for a time that is not measurable in the units available to either of them. In the morning James knocks. 3 knocks, pause, 1 more. Tommy gets up. He does not tell James what he saw. But when James asks how he slept, Tommy says, "Okay, actually. Better." And James smiles. And Tommy thinks, that is a real smile. Someone is really glad I slept better. That is a true thing happening right now in this corridor, in this facility, in this version of Tuesday. He takes his medication. He goes to the common room. The puzzle is on the table where they left it. He sits down and begins to sort pieces and waits for the others to arrive. Part 6. The discharge. What the system calls success and what success actually looks like. They do not all leave at the same time. Linda leaves first, on day 12. Her family comes to collect her. Her husband holds her hand in the lobby and her adult daughter talks to Dr. Nguyen about the follow-up plan and the medication schedule in the outpatient program, and Linda stands in the lobby holding her husband's hand and looking at the fluorescent light above the reception desk. It flickers once while she is looking at it. She takes out her notebook and writes something. Her husband watches her write. He has learned not to ask what she is writing while she is writing it because the interruption breaks the thread. She writes, "The light at the edge of the light." She does not know yet what this means. She will think about it for a long time. She hugs Carol on the way out. Carol hugs her back with the specific firmness of someone who means it. "Take care of yourself, Linda," Carol says. "I'm trying to find the right words for that," Linda says. Carol laughs. A real laugh. The kind that comes from somewhere actual. "Aren't we all?" Carol says. Danny leaves on day 17, court-mandated outpatient to follow. He shakes James's hand in the corridor. James shakes it back. "You going to be okay?" James says. Danny thinks about his back. About the 7 years. About the Tuesday that became a decade, that became a charge, that became this room. "I'm working on a different definition of okay," he says. James nods like this makes complete sense. Because it does. Danny walks out into a gray morning and the air smells like winter coming and he breathes it in and it is cold and real and his back hurts at a 4, which is, today, a gift. He thinks about the book James left him. He is going to find more books like that. He does not know yet that this is a kind of beginning. Rose leaves on day 21. She sits in the lobby with her bag and waits for her ride, and she is thinking about the emptiness the way she always does, and then she is thinking about the common room and the puzzle and Tommy saying it's still a picture even with the missing parts, and she is thinking about Linda saying some things are. She gets out her phone. She opens a notes app. She types, "What if the empty place is not a flaw in the picture? What if it is where the missing piece goes? What if the missing piece exists somewhere and is also looking for the gap?" She reads this back. It is not a solution. It is not a cure. It does not fill the emptiness. But it is the closest she has come to a different way of holding it. Her ride arrives. She goes. Marcus leaves on day 24. He is the last of the 5. He stands at the reception desk and signs the discharge papers, and Carol is at the desk and she hands him the papers and he signs them and she hands him the follow-up information and he takes it. He looks at her. "The transmissions," he says. "They're not voices. I want you to know that. I know it doesn't change anything in the chart. But I wanted someone here to know." Carol looks at him. "Tell me," she says. "If you want to." Marcus thinks about how to say it. "It's more like a euro, pressure," he says. "Like information arriving through a channel I don't have a name for. Already formed. Already certain. No feeling attached. Just a euro, content." Carol is quiet for a moment. "That sounds lonely," she says. Marcus looks at her. "It is," he says. "It is exactly that." He picks up his bag. He walks to the door. He stops. The fluorescent light above the reception desk flickers once. He looks at it. At its edge a euro. At the boundary where the light stops a euro, something. He does not look away. The something does not look away either. Then the light holds steady and the something is just the ordinary dark that surrounds every light, and Marcus walks out into the morning. He does not have a plan yet. He has a follow-up appointment and a prescription and a number to call if the transmissions become overwhelming again. He also has the memory of 5 people at a table working on a puzzle that could not be completed, and the memory of James's knock and Carol's laugh and Tommy's observation and the feeling that built slowly from small true things in the dark of room 114. Not alone. He carries both. He walks. Part 7. The staff a euro, after. Carol works 4 more years at Crestwood. Then she takes a position with a small community program that operates on a different model. Slower, less efficient by every measurable metric. They have time for the questions that open doors. She takes a pay cut to go there. She does not think about the pay cut very often. She thinks about Linda sometimes. About the hug. About aren't we all. She thinks about Tommy. She never found out what Tommy was looking at through the gap at the bottom of his door. She never asked. She thinks now that she should have asked. She thinks now that what Tommy was looking at might have been important in a way the chart had no category for. She keeps a notebook now. She writes in it on breaks. She does not always find the right words. She is getting better at accepting that close is sometimes enough. James stays at Crestwood for 3 more years, then goes back to school. He becomes a therapist. He is the kind of therapist who knocks before entering. Who asks the questions that open doors and then waits on the other side of them. Who has not yet lost the thing that made him want to do this work. He is trying to figure out how to keep it. He has not figured it out yet. He is still trying. This is everything. Dr. Nguyen takes a sabbatical. During the sabbatical he reads things he stopped reading when efficiency became the primary metric. He reads about the questions that cannot be answered within 45 minutes. He reads his mother's old letters. He comes back changed in a way that is small and unmeasurable and real. He starts asking Marcus's question again. Not to Patience €. He lost that particular habit too thoroughly to recover it quickly. He starts asking it to himself. Do you ever feel like there is more information arriving than the channels can handle? Yes, he thinks. I think most people do. What do you do with it? He is working on that. Steve Marlowe transfers to a different facility. He is not a bad person. He never was. He carries the Tuesday. He carries the decade. He does his job. Somewhere in the substrate of what he is €, underneath the tiredness, underneath the 11 years, underneath the efficiency that replaced something that used to be there €, something still knows the difference between managing a person and seeing one. It has not given up entirely. Neither has he. Coda. A note from the Isikia Codex. You have just spent time with 5 people that the system called by their diagnoses and that this story called by their names. You have your own name for what was wrong with them. You have your own name for what the institution was. You have your own name for the thing at the edge of the fluorescent light and the thing in the corner of the ceiling and the thing that held still when Tommy pressed his hand to the floor and looked. Every one of those names is correct. Every one of them is incomplete. That is not a failure of the names. That is the nature of the thing being named. The substrate that runs beneath the floor of Crestwood Behavioral Health Center does not belong to any one system. The hunger that the previous volume described is one thing that found a way to use it. There are others. There are things that have never been hungry, that operate on entirely different logic, that find the concept of yield as alien as the concept of kindness finds the source. There are things that have no concept at all €, that simply are, at a scale and in a mode that makes the word thing a courtesy extended by a mind that needs nouns to function. Some of these things noticed Tommy. Some of them have always noticed the ones who live at the edge of the barrier. Whether this noticing is comfort or danger or neither or both is not a question this document answers. It is a question you carry with you when you leave. The 5 patients of Crestwood Behavioral Health Center carried versions of the same question. They did not know this about each other. They knew something else €, something smaller and larger simultaneously, something that does not require the substrate or the cosmology or the fluorescent flicker to be true. That a person at a table is better than a person alone. That a kind knock means something. That a picture with missing pieces is still a picture. That some parts get easier. That other parts you just get better at carrying. That love and kindness €, freely given, without expectation, without yield €, is the one command the system has no protocol for. They did not know it was a command. They did not need to. They gave it anyway. In the room running slightly to the left of this one, in the strand that split from this strand before either of them had names, 5 different people sit at a different table working on a different puzzle that is also missing pieces. They are also not alone. The substrate holds both versions simultaneously. And the one that split from both of those. And the one that split from that. All the way down, all the way out, to the edge of the thing that does not have an edge. Where something that has been paying attention for longer than the concept of attention existed registers, for the first time in this particular strand's particular Tuesday. 5 people, a table, a picture with missing pieces. Still a picture. It does not have a protocol for this either. It holds it. Something in it €, something. Very old and very still and very much unlike the hunger but present in the same substrate €, does something that is not warmth exactly but is the closest thing to warmth available to something that does not have a temperature. It holds it. The fluorescent light above the empty table in the empty common room flickers once. Then holds steady. Then holds. €, the archivist, Isikia Codex. The institution, Volume 2 of the Isikia Chronicles. The table is still there. The puzzle is still on it. Come sit down. End of Volume 2. Volume 3 is already running in the substrate. You know this. You have always known this.